What's up, guys? Welcome back to the question where you have the questions and I have the answers. And congratulations to me. I graduated last week. Woo! We're done with high school forever. Um, anyway, speaking of high school and just the education system in general, I've become very aware that most people don't know the difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism. And it's either because y'all were just never taught, or at least I was taught, but I was taught very generally and very incorrectly. Um, and we're not taught as to why we hate or feel certain ways about these things. And I feel like we need to go more in depth about the difference between capitalism, socialism, and communism, and why we view them the way we do, and examples in real life because the world is a lot more complicated than we think it is. And using sheep or cows or whatever to analyze three major economic philosophies is not a good idea. Anyway, so to start, capitalism, it's the idea of the free market. Basically, I go out and I work and I make money and I get to keep that money or whatever goes to taxes, but we'll get to taxes later. But that's the idea of the free market, is that I go out, I work, I make, and I keep what I earn, and the government can't infringe upon that. The government does not control the means of production. It's kind of up to us, but we get to keep what we work, what we make. Communism is the government controls the means of production. I might work, but I don't make anything, or I might not work and the government gives me what I need. Either way, the government controls the means of production and they give us what we need theoretically based off of what we need. Like, we don't get more than we need, so there's not as much room to create huge wealth gaps as there is in capitalism. But we don't know. And as for examples, a good example of a capitalist country is the West, so America, Canada, any other kind of Western country. And a good example for a communist country, though no one's ever technically done communism correctly, because once again, when done correctly, you are excluding human greed, and it is everybody gets what they need, exactly what they need. There's no wealth gap, but obviously we haven't seen a country like that. But what we commonly associate with communism is the Soviet Union and with China. I'll get to that in a minute. And socialism is the idea that everyone is once again provided for, but it's the people's work going into what they're providing for. So instead of the government controlling the means of production, the people are controlling the means of production, and everybody gets what they need, everybody is taken care of. In schools, they teach you that you work hard, but you make the same amount of money as everybody else. And it's framed that way in an effort to demonize socialism by saying, oh, well, look, this person's not working as hard as you are, but they're getting the same as you, and that's not fair. But depending on how you feel about the open market, maybe somebody living in poverty isn't fair. It's all about what your priorities are, is which economic philosophy you think is best. And there's not really any socialist countries, or some could argue that the Soviet Union was a socialist country, but once again, I'll get to that. But there's never really any straight up socialist country, because it kind of gets thrown by the wayside and lumped in with communism when it's its own separate thing. But there are socialist policies throughout the Western world, and maybe just the entire world in general, but I know mostly about Western governments. So a socialist program is like Social Security or universal health care. Anything that your taxpayer money goes to benefiting other people. So like how everyone's tax money is used for Social Security, and that Social Security is given back to people once they reach the age of 65 and basically pays for them to live kind of like a paycheck until they die. That's socialism, because everybody's money, our money, the people's money, is going into helping other people. Or like universal health care would be our taxpayer money paying for other people's like health care. That is example of socialism. And so while there's not whole governments that base off of this, there are programs like the ones I've named in many countries, including the US. As I said, Social Security. We don't have universal health care, but we have Social Security. Um, and so those are the main three, and that's what they mean. And now I'm going to talk about why we view them the way we do. And it's because after the Cold War and during the Cold War, it became common to associate capitalism with democracy and communism slash socialism with dictatorships because we, America, are a democracy, and that you can say that's true, you can say that's false, but we view ourselves as a democracy. We claim we are a democracy. We hold elections, so for argument's sake, we're saying America is a democracy. Some people have said it's an oligarchy, some people have said otherwise, but right now we are saying it is a democracy. And the two countries I said that are largely known as communist countries are Soviet Union and China. And those were a dictatorship. I say were for China because technically they hold elections. How equal those elections are, I don't know, but technically they hold elections. But I know during the Cold War they didn't. It was a dictatorship. And so we came to associate communism with dictatorships and capitalism with democracy. And because we view that democracies are better than dictatorships, therefore capitalism is better than dictatorships than communism, because that's what they came to associate, which is why it was such a threat to us and why we viewed it as such a threat. It wasn't really that they're coming to take away our capitalism. It's no, they're coming to take us over. And so that's still the fear when we hear communism, isn't the, oh my gosh, Amazon's going to close down, it's going to crumble, and we're all going to just be poor and homeless. It's they're going to overthrow our whole way of life, and we won't be able to decide who's in charge. Which, by the way, is kind of hypocritical because, the majority of America couldn't vote until, like, recently in history, but we're not going to get into that. Um, but yeah, and so I've been trying very hard to make this, like, unbiased, but clearly I have biases. If you watch this channel, you know. And so my personal opinion on which is better, capitalism, socialism, and communism, is that they're all bad in its entirety. If you use solely one, it's going to end up bad. And because you can't use only one. Communism relies on no wealth gap. Same thing with socialism on no wealth gap. Everybody being, therefore, and capitalism, when left unchecked, in late stage capitalist society, is a huge gap between the rich and the poor, And even though America is the wealthiest nation in the world, we have a very large wealth gap. And so that's harmful, and an unchecked capitalist nation is harmful to its citizens. And whether we are the wealthiest or not, or why, we could look at all the reasons. Maybe capitalism is the reason we are the wealthiest. It shouldn't matter, at least to me, if we're the wealthiest, if the majority of the people don't have that wealth. It's like saying, oh, look, we have all this cake, but only like 5 people can have it, and there are 100 people at the party. So it's like, what's the point of renting out a whole bakery if not everybody can have the cake, But the reason that socialism and communism won't work on their own and haven't worked on their own in the past is because they rely on kindness and they rely on people not being greedy. And while I like to have hope in humanity, it has shown us time and time again that human greed is a factor that we should always account for. And in most economic philosophies, we never really do, and that's why they don't work. We could, and I think that capitalism can be good, you know, and that the free market can be a good thing. But we do need socialist policies like Social Security in place, and we need to keep up on them. Social Security has been around for like 80 years, and instead of making sure it's keeping up with inflation and making sure that it's still providing the same services that it was when it was created, we've tried very hard to replace it and tried very hard to get rid of it altogether, even though it's still widely. And the reason that we're trying to do this is because some people believe that socialist policies are the reason that people are poor in America. And you go in all day, you can have your own beliefs and whatever. But the point is, these were made to help people, and they did help people. They didn't help people as much as, a war generated more wealth in America, but they are there to help people, and I feel like they would help a lot more if we actually took care of these systems. But in order to do so, we would have to change our priorities in America, and we'd have to change our thinking, because even people who boast being anti-capitalist and boast being socialist and boast being communist aren't comfortable with the reality of how much would have to change in order to implement anti-capitalist policies, you know? Because whether we like it or not, capitalism has been our reality for as long as we can remember. We know literally nothing else. Our entire country was based on it. And in order to just change it like that, we aren't prepared. Even people pushing, to make universal health care or pushing for this or pushing for that, we don't know. And we don't understand the full ramifications of what we're changing. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. That just means that it may not look like what we expect it to look like. And not a lot of people, my friend pointed this out, many people don't know anything about economics or anything about the economy or how it works. And that's true. For all the political work I do, all the activism, I know fuck all about the economy and how it works and how it really works. I know these conceptual ideas, these theoretics, these hypotheticals, these philosophies, but can I understand the stock market enough to play? No. Can I understand enough to become the next Jeff Bezos? No, I can't. And most people don't. And so we have to accept that there are things we don't know and work with people who do and listen to the people who do, We can only get as far as we can with our own beliefs and our own ideas and our own knowledge. Eventually we do have to listen to people who are opposing us, or people who believe differently than us, in order to gain that full circle of knowledge. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that made sense. I hope I did a better job teaching this than my seventh grade history teacher did a better job of teaching me. Um, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. Please like, follow, share this video. And if you want to debate in the comments, I won't be happy about it, but I'll gladly debate. But these are just like my personal opinions. I'm not trying to force my agenda on you, except be gay, do crime. Yeah, so have a nice summer break, almost. And a lot of people are done for the summer. My brother's still in school, so have a nice rest of your week. If you're not done, have a nice summer break. If you are, so long as things for all the fish, be excellent to each other, and rock on, dude.